Welcome to LOA Today. I'm Walt Thiessen.
With me today is Debbie G of Spirituality Gone Wild.
This is your daily dose of happy. We are so happy you decided to join us today.
And I think I can honestly say this is going to be one of those high-flying shows. This is going to be one of those shows where the energy just kind of takes off and stays at about 35,000 feet. So be ready. I hope you're strapped in. You know, check the luggage compartment above you to make sure everything's closed up, because this is going to be a ride. And we're going to start off by just hearing one more piece of crazy news from Debbie G. She was just telling us before we got started, yet another manifestation story. I mean, like closing on a 20-acre ranch isn't good enough. She had to up it. And you did. I mean, that's great.
Well, first, I want to preface this with saying that stuff is cool and stuff is great. And I love stuff. And I'll share about getting stuff because that's really awesome. But it doesn't come without first shifting the attitude to gratitude, period. Where you sit right now. So when I talk about stuff, it really is the aftermath. It's the aftermath of being truly in joy or staying in that vibration. And what I can tell you is that my life today, my existence or the external viewpoint is that of grateful beingness. But it feels the same as it did when I didn't have stuff. I've been there, done that, had it all, lost it all, had it all, lost it all. Now I'm back. The stuff is not that's not what the factor is. It's what's going on internally. And I just have to say that because I don't want to talk about stuff and give anybody the idea that that's what's missing, because nothing's missing. And that was the overall journey this last 3 years, from not knowing where we're headed, not knowing what we're doing, to being on the flip side. So
it's been a heck of a 3 years too. I mean, let's be perfectly blunt about that.
Oh, it's been wild. It's been wild, but I loved it. It's an adventure. But here's what's cool. So Monday on Lionsgate was also Spirituality Gone Wild's 5th anniversary.
Yeah. All right.
Dude, I'm not guys, right? Okay. So Spirituality's Gone Wild for 5 years. Well, I put off our Symphony of Gratitude until after we get done with Peace Week on Unify. And the reason is because we're going to be celebrating this 5 years in an extraordinary way. But here's where I was. Okay. So check this out. So Monday, this last Monday, I am in Malibu at the Rafi Lounge with Awaken from Within at this divine celebration for Lionsgate, overlooking the ocean, going, just the universe. Grateful beingness is just such a beautiful space. The universe gifted me the opportunity and celebrated with me the 5 years of joy of showing up for other people and showing up for myself, all of it. And it was an extraordinary event. And I thank you, Unify, because I love being part of the Unify Goddess crew, as well as everybody that was there. But here's the cool part. So I'm sitting there in Malibu, don't know anybody else but the ladies that I went with, right? And there's Fantuzzi over there. Oh my gosh, you got to be kidding me. Fantuzzi, y'all, he's a riot. You don't know I love you, Fantuzzi. He was the dude back in like the Woodstock days that was on the cover of Time magazine. For real. And he started the rainbow gatherings and all this, and he's just awesome. And then I turn around and I see this other woman and I'm like, I know her. In fact, I know her. She is the goddess, like goddess wear, everything, Kathleen Gildred. And I'm like, she looks at me and we haven't seen each other in 4 years. She's like, I don't know you, but I love you. I'm like, I look at Kathleen and I'm like, aren't you Kathleen? And she said, yeah. I said, it's Debbie. And it was like this big. So not only do I get gifted a view of the ocean in Malibu and this extraordinary time, but also dear people that are beautiful to my heart. And it was just awesome. And then later in the week, we decided if you have a ranch, what's next?
Right.
The Dodge Ram LeMary, right?
Oh, yeah.
So, it's so sweet. I swear to God. See, I'm 5'10", so let me tell you, in a truck, I'm like, yeah. badass. Let me tell you what.
I can just see you in your Ram too. I can just see you. I mean, you'd be perfect.
It's so cool. It's ridiculous. The idea here is that your attitude and your willingness to show up in life with pure, just no agendas, seriously. Just because that's what changes things. Nothing else. I haven't found anything else that changes it, anything other than appreciation and being a service. Those two things, you put those two together, your life is going to rock.
Mm-hmm.
There is no room for whining in that.
Absolutely. That's a beautiful summary. I mean, we almost don't even need to do the rest of the show because you.
We do,
right
because
there.
I want to know all about Eric, even though I was just looking at his website.
He has one serious resume. Let me tell you this.
Really seriously, I saw that.
Well, first of all, did you see what he called? I love the way he describes this. He says he calls it career tourism, and what he doesn't mean that he's his career is to be a tourist. He means that his career is the tourism. In other words, he's using his career as a way to just go and do stuff and to enjoy stuff. And what a great attitude that is. It's a fabulous attitude. I'm looking forward to learning more about it. So let me tell you a little more. His name is Eric. Oh, I screwed it up. Debbie, I forgot to ask him how to pronounce his name. I'm going to have to wing it here.
We want to take a guess? Yeah, go for it. Let's see.
So I'm going to say it's Eric Goeres.
Goeres?
Well, it was both of you. I think Walt got a little bit closer there because he went deep for the German, it sounded like.
That's what I was trying for, yeah.
Yeah, and that's the origin for sure. I mean,
it is.
I say it Eric Goeres. Kind of rhymes with chorus is how I say it to help people out. But I mean, what's in a name, you know?
Well, it's always a fun way to try to start and see if you can get it right.
Well, Debbie G does it right because it's hard. Like that's a name we're not going to mispronounce there.
That's
you know what's going on right from the get-go there.
Debbie Gratitude. Exactly. You can't miss that.
That's right.
Debbie G. Well, I like the actually, Eric, I'll tell you the reason is because everybody's always called me Debbie G, even when I was a child, and it's like, and now it just means something different. But I was close, so I put a Z on the end. I wanted to make you. Goeres.
Worldly, sort of soap opera ish. I like it. I mean, I'll take it. Like I said, I'm a crowd pleaser, so whatever floats everyone's boat.
Well, you're more than a crowd pleaser. Let's be honest. I mean, this is just a list of some of the publications that he has played a role in their brand development: Esquire, Men's Health, Women's Health, Entertainment Weekly, The Drive, Road and Track, Ride Apart, Car and Driver, Popular Mechanics, Best Life, Organic Style, and Eat This, Not That. I mean, one of those would be a resume. Just one.
Yeah.
He's got all of them. Like, what's the secret, Eric? Seriously.
Each one of those things is, it's its own little ride with its own little, ups and downs and awesomeness. But, it's funny. Debbie put it right out there. This is, it's true. I went to school for journalism, right? But I wound up in New York City, and just like Debbie said, showing up, being there, having an open attitude, being present. That's what it is. And that was the beauty. In that industry, it just picks you up, pulls you along. You know what I mean? And you continue to, just like you said, contribute, give results, and you just get pulled along. It's exciting. Yeah.
Tell us a little bit more about your background too, because I just hit kind of the publication highlights, but you've done quite a bit of interesting stuff, and you've started a lot of interesting businesses, and just give us like a lay of the land, so to speak.
Moving around, following what's interesting, and but doing so in a way that's not it's not haphazard, and it's not just coincidental. I mean, I coach now, right? I help people pull their things into focus, and into alignment. And a lot of that has to do with intentionality, right? Being purposeful about what they're doing for a reason, in alignment with their values and all this stuff, right? So this whole career history of mine was sort of same values, same thing, just applying it different ways. And it's honestly, it started in high school, and it started with sort of a passion for setting up environments where people could be entertained, putting things in front of people. It was in high school, as dorky as it. I mean, I don't know if it's dorky. Let's not judge, right? Why even put a label on it? I did a tremendous amount of community theater, right? And I don't mean acting. I mean, like, I guess you could call it producing. It's hard to imagine a 16-year-old high school kid being a producer. But when you do everything except act, direct, write the script, build the sets, you're just making, the marketing, and that you're producing.
You're
So
producing. That's a
yeah,
producer.
so that's what that was. And then when you look at that and then translate it out, magazines, it's the same thing. Digital media, it's the same thing. You're putting what we're doing right now. We're putting the sort of good thoughts, energy, and vibes out in front of people who need it, want it, and appreciate it. So that's been the connecting narrative. I just got off a coaching call with someone, and she was concerned that there wasn't a connective thread through all of her life and through everything that she's done. And in mine, it's that facilitating getting the word out there. For her, it was this is funny though, she couldn't see it, but it was immediately apparent to me, which is interesting.
Which is usual, by the way. We often can't see our own, but everybody else can see it.
Yeah,
I love how that you're so because it sounds like when you have that bird's eye view,
Yeah,
that observation, that's beautiful. So tell me what happened once that you expressed how you saw it to her and you showed her the overview. Was she able to then grasp that and see that?
Yes. But but the trick, of course, is because we're talking coaching here and not like mentoring, right? It's like I can see it, but I can't just come out and say it. I have to, just sort of not dance around it, but explore the circumstances around, why it's getting lost on her, and let her come up with that vision, that realization. It's got to come up from within her. Oh, now I see. I do understand. I am something that is consistent through my career. Yeah, you are, and we all are. But just like Walt said, it's we're often, it's hardest for us to see sometimes.
Well, partly because we're living the life. And in the middle of the life, it's often hard to see, first of all, what happened from month to month, let alone, year to year. And second of all, we have to live through a lot of stuff, often unpleasant stuff, in order to see how the whole thing fits together. Because in the middle of living through the unpleasant stuff, about the last thing we want to know is how the whole thing fits together. We just want to know how to get out of that unpleasant stuff that we're dealing with. So that's why we have to kind of gain that long perspective that comes from being able to look back at it after we've been through it before we can finally really see it. And I think that's what makes it a challenge when we're dealing with a question like she just did, which was, what is my thread? Where's the connection here? I think about, for instance, what led me to do this podcast. And I've told the story many times, so I'll just give you like the real quick version. But the quick version was by 2012, after a crash and burn in 2008, when my business got wiped out entirely, 4 years later, deep in debt, didn't know what to do, couldn't afford to hire a coach. So I started a podcast so I could get taught by a bunch of experts for free, which worked out great. What I didn't expect was how much I was going to love it. And I loved it so much that I kept doing it. It's been 10 years now. The part that goes along with that is the realization of all the skills that came together in order to make that possible. I had an IT background that made it possible for me to create a podcast at a time before we had Zoom and StreamYard and all these wonderful tools. You basically had to figure out your own way to put the thing together. I had a marketing background that I never really thought of as a marketing background, but it was. It enabled me to recognize two things. First of all, I didn't have to market. All I had to do is keep putting the content out and just keep supporting the content. And secondly, it also helped me to understand that I didn't have to worry about the marketing. That marketing is not something to worry about. It really isn't.
Oh, I love that. We could talk an hour on that. I mean, that is, I mean, the world is definitely, caught up in a frenzy thinking that they need to endlessly market themselves to everyone else. And boy, I believe nothing could be further from the truth. I mean, I know you guys are already believers, but I mean, if you do good work, people will notice. It will get around, when we don't do good work, we just focus on the marketing. That's a completely different beast,
Yeah, it is. It really is.
Yeah.
Well, the thing is, Eric, you said journalism, and journalism is like it's such a fun avenue to go down. Yeah. So what that tells me about you is that you have an ability to observe situations and sort of get a perspective on it, which is probably what makes you really great with your clients.
That's interesting. I mean, look at that. I mean, that's exactly right. You just picked a thread right up there and put it there in a way that I hadn't even thought about it, just to illustrate the point. Because I hadn't considered that, but now that I think about it, you're absolutely right. Because, when I went to journalism school, this was, a couple decades ago. It was, they taught, this is real journalism. Like, first year, all you do is, for example, when I say real journalism, like year one, all you do is take classes on ethics, the importance of getting it right, the importance of being truthful, the importance of sourcing, the importance of, they really hammered it in, back then in 1990, that if you wanted to be a journalist, you were really carrying a very big responsibility on your back to get it right, be truthful and not sensationalize and all these. But to do that observation, right, to be honest, to be ethical in this journalism, you have to become a professional observer, and you have to have a process for that and follow it, because you can't accidentally be a careful observer. You've got to, put the energy into it. So, but I appreciate you connecting that to coaching. I think that's very interesting because so much of coaching is, intuition, I guess,
Well, it's also being willing to ask questions. A good coach is always asking questions, and a good journalist can't survive without asking questions.
Oh my God. And they're the same things, it's like, it's funny. I take I'm a continuing ed kind of guy. Like, I love just continually learning and being part of stuff. So even this coaching stuff, I've been doing it now for almost 3 years, and I'm still taking classes all over the place because I think it's interesting. Yeah. But they talk about, they talk about silence being the best question. And boy, is it ever. I mean, someone can say something and then you just let that silence build and build and build. Or, you ask a question, then let the silence build. Well, they taught us that in journalism school too. They're like, when you're talking to the mayor of whatever town and you've got them on the hook about, where the police budget went, ask the question and then just zip it. Then after the journalism school trick is, the journalist trick is, after they're done answering the question, still
zip it.
And then 20 seconds later, that's when they say, well, yeah, well, I did bribe the chief of police,
Yeah, I just thought I'd mention that. Yeah. I love that articulation in there. Active listening is our grandest tool. And active listening to me means exactly what you just said. It's that silence, but also you both mentioned something that's vital in that, and that's that ability to reflect what we've heard within the point of a question as well, to help them. Coaching to me is the way that we show up for each other, to help each other out of whatever it is that we might be in. It's guidance. Everybody in the world needs a coach. Tony Robbins he has a coach.
Yes, he does. Mm-hmm.
Everybody needs someone that they can look to. I love what you're doing. So I want to know more about your coaching too. So Walt, you know me, I just get all excited and I can't help myself.
Well, that's what I love about you.
I'm
serious. I absolutely love it. Friday, Eric, is one of the reasons I love Fridays, particularly when Neil can be here, is that on Fridays I get 2 other podcast hosts to do a podcast with. So it's like, the triple threat, so to speak.
Oh,
and the guest that day is like hitting it, it's like they're getting it from all angles because they're realizing, oh my God, I got more questions than I can handle here.
No, it's great. I mean, first off, I can talk about coaching endlessly, Debbie, because I love it. Secondly, Walt, I saw the calendar. I could have picked a Tuesday or a Friday. And I mean, that there is no choice, right? We know the energy is going to be better on Friday. So there you are. Yeah. But, Debbie G, I was going to say the coaching thing. Yeah. Well, we're all in pursuit of a better version of ourselves always, right? Whether we know it or not, So this coaching thing, right? It's everyone should have a coach, even if you don't think, because there's something out there that we can get into and open up, and you can learn something about yourself and your way forward. And it can be a small thing. It could be a big thing, but again, it's, this is all ripples in the pond. I mean, you change a little thing, it's got a ripple effect. Now you're a little bit happier at home. Next thing you know, you're getting along better with the kids. Now the kids aren't, throwing rocks at the cat. The cat's not chasing the mouse. It just goes on and on. So yeah, I'm a big believer in it for sure.
Marketing. So coming from a world of graphic design and marketing,
Mhm.
My marketing was though more in person. I had a publication in Southern California years ago. So I'm fascinated how that you've brought that into it too, because well, marketing is simply 50-50, hit or miss, but you have an ability to tune in and hone in on what your audience is desiring. So my guess is that you're also doing that, honing in. That it's back to those, but it's more that it's observation, it's everything. How have you pulled that into this, and what's your fascination with marketing? I'm curious.
Well, I mean, my fascination with marketing is, well, to be honest, it's a little bit of a dislike for it anymore. I mean, there's a lot of, these publications that Walt mentioned. I mean, a lot of what I did, when we're talking about brand development, a tremendous amount of that is marketing.
Correct.
And yeah, you certainly know that as well, Deb. So, but I guess the thing that it's not a dislike of marketing. It's just that, if you want to be a digital marketer, be a digital marketer. There is a tremendous amount of money to be made in being a professional digital marketer, But if you want to be a coach or if you want to be a hairdresser, I'm picking this out of thin air, and you have to spend 3/4 of your time doing digital marketing, that's, I don't know, that sounds like a misapplication of your talents. It's not for me to decide, right? It's for you to decide. But I mean, I don't mean you. I mean the theoretical hairdresser out
Right.
in the world. But for me, and this is why, kind of the appeal of the show and what we're talking about today, which is, do the good work, let the results fall where they, let the success follow. Walt, I hope you don't mind if I don't jump the thing here, but when we got on the phone, Walt's like, "Hey, do you have anything you want to, push on the show?" And I don't, but what I said to Walt is that, the same I say to anyone, I'll give anyone an hour of my time to talk about their problems, so with expecting nothing in return, it's good for me. It's good for them. So
That's
Well,
a
that's a
great piece of
key.
marketing right there.
Yeah, well,
That was a beautiful piece of marketing. It really
it
was.
really,
I mean,
really was.
he didn't do it as marketing, but that's really what it was. It was great.
Well,
Because it was
yeah,
genuine. It was real. It was
okay.
like, I'm not trying to, it's not about giving me money. Like, what can I do to help you? Like you were saying,
Yeah.
Debbie, right? How can you be of service?
How can you be of service? They're paying you to be of service, but there's a point in this. It's that we need each other in this capacity to help each other to the next level. Have you ever played Mario Brothers? Way back in the day, that was the only video game I ever played, and I'm not even sure why. I was bored with it the minute I beat the things. It was like, what the heck? But later on they came out with cheats, and it's like those cheats are like what we are. Coaches are cheats. They're cheats to the game, man. To get to that, they are the one that's going to tell you, you can do A, B, and C and see which one you like and see what works for you. These are the ground. These are the foundational things that I do. Perhaps this, that type of thing. It's a suggestion type of thing. I'm curious, actually, what your ground foundational tools are in your own existence that you do share with your other clients. Your cheats.
Yeah. What are the cheats, huh?
What are your cheats?
There's a lot that I do to, so I work with a lot of business owners. That's where this started. Walt had asked about my last business. It was an ice factory here in Miami. I had it for 2.5 years. Bought it, grew it, sold it. Yeah, you'd think it was smart, right? But I mean, it was
it looked smart from my
Sure. Me too. Going in, it looked awesome, right? Like everything looks great going in. But it was so stressful and so just like killer, right? That by the end of it, I was, that's it. I've got to, one, I'm not putting myself on the hook anymore for businesses. And two, I'm going to devote this next part of my career to helping people who have put all their money, savings and whatever, and stress and everything into a business. Because that is a lonely, lonely, lonely place to be. I mean, when you have a payroll, and a commercial lease and suppliers and employees with families and things start going sideways and you're on the hook for it, and your money, all your chips are already in on this thing. there's not a lot of people that you can talk to about that, because, you know, you can't bring that home. I say this all the time, but I mean, you can't bring that home to the wife and kids. You can't bring that home to your partner. You can't talk to your business partners about, hey, I'm scared of losing the business. Hey, I'm scared of going broke. No one wants to hear that. And, you know, and you don't want to hear it either. That's the other thing, right? Is that if you're walking around thinking, Jesus, I'm going broke on this thing. Well, those are very scary thoughts to be running around in your head. And that needs to be changed too, right? Like, you know,
Absolutely.
can't be running that soundtrack all the time. But when you're in it, it is just like we started with, when you're in it, it is so hard to see that that's what needs to be worked on. So I guess in answer to your question, Debbie, a lot of it is, you know, turning that around. And, you know, I have a client in Maine right now who's running a new tape in her head, a new loop in her head, is that, you know, I run a business that brings in $5,000 a day. Bing. You know what I mean? And just keep rolling with that. Don't change anything else in your life. Client, just, you know, she's running that thing, and let's just see where it goes. Right. So stories. She started doing this a couple months ago. Well, you know, now her sales are, you know, they're not there yet, but they're approaching that, getting very close. Yeah. So what do we attribute it to? Right. Is it the season? Is it the sound, you know, the new spring in her step that's coming from the soundtrack in her head? So I know the listeners are real.
Hold tight. The spring in your step that matches the soundtrack in your head. Like I'm jamming on that vibe
write
right
that
now.
one down.
Ooh,
Yeah.
The spring in your step. It's going right to the soundtrack in your mind. Let's go. Listeners, get with it. Write that down.
Absolutely. That's a good one.
That was a nugget. That was a cheat. Thank you very much.
Cheat.
I'm taking that.
Good. I love it. I love that it gets the response that it gets. That's good. Well, that's the energy, I guess. I don't know. The other. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just confirming. Go ahead and tell us what the other thing was.
I was going to say that, you know, the other thing, who knows? I'm not, you know, I don't have a lot of tricks and moves, but, you know, when we do start working in a session, I mean, it always seems see, that's the thing. At least when I coach, we get in there and I just try to explore. Let's just explore it. Let's just talk about it. Oh, well, it's this and this and this. Okay, well, which one of those would be most interesting to really dig into? Well, it's this. Okay, then let's just keep digging. You know, there's not something that I'm trying to sort of lay into it or force anyone into. But let's just keep exploring and keep pulling out of it. And then what happens is, and I know you guys have seen this, the more you explore and the more you talk about it, well, then all of a sudden the answer is just standing there like a person waiting for the bus. You know what I mean? It's like, wow, there is right now we're clear. Now we've got clarity. And that's that beautiful moment in coaching where, you know, again, people leave session with a spring in their step and a new soundtrack in their head, right? Because they've shifted into something else. And then it's back to what I was saying about the energy. Now they have a different energy. Now it's a different energy around the office. Now people are doing different things, and, you know, it ripples out. But, you know, Walt, like these magazines, right? Like Men's Health and Women's Health magazine, for example, and Organic Style to an extent too. These are magazines where, you know, by the very nature of the content, if we do a good job of putting good content in there and getting that content to readers, that has tremendous ripple effect. I mean, when Men's Health, Women's Health, I mean, you know, as silly as it is, but the journey there, or the job there, was to take something that a lot of people really don't want to do, which is be healthy, and make it appealing, right? Make it fun, make it interesting, make it integrated into sort of their sort of wellness thing. Seems like we're trying to sell magazines. Not really. There was a tremendous behind the scenes thing where we sort of felt that this is 2010, I guess, where we felt like we were coming up on a big epidemic of I don't know, not overweight, not obesity, but diabetes. Like that, we felt that there was a bit of a big surge of diabetic coming from so that was a lot behind of what we did. And there was definitely an idea of, you know, the better we did with the magazine, the better our readers would be.
That's really
that's actually great. I love that. I really actually like that twist on it. You know, that's beautiful. Because what I hear is that, looking at the magazines, you're looking at not the results of the magazine, the results of the end user. And if we consider that of the end user before that we consider ourselves as being of service in another way, I just think that's beautiful, because the result is people having better information. And right now we are at an age where we need information, but we need valuable information with actual tools to put in place to implement. And that's why the foundational tools that we use and share are so vitally important. So what do you do when you get somebody who's in massive victim mode? They need a ambulance. Not judging at all. I could have won. I've got Emmys. I've got them. Right? My victim was big. So, but I know that it shows up in coaching, and you've got somebody. How do you handle that?
On a case by case basis, I guess would be the answer. Yeah. I mean, but you're right though. Victim is a huge thing, and we see it all the time. This is happening to me. I mean, there's the sort of questioning way, is it happening to you? Is that true? Is this always happening to you?
Is that true? That's a good one. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
There's another great one.
Yeah. One I like is, where did you get that story? Who told you to believe that? Where'd that come from? Which is, not meant to, again, it's not meant to sort of just, counter them like with a spiffy argument, but it's really interesting. Like, where does this go? And again, it goes back to, well, let's just explore it. Let's just get into it. What's going on here? But victim is such a big one that, it could be the work of years, to really go through victim, or in some cases it can go very, very quickly. Like, but it is common, big time.
It's going to vary a lot.
Well, I ask you this.
Right? No, go ahead.
Well, it's true. It does vary a lot. The reason I ask this is that with COVID and the pandemic, and everybody is just like, there's a lot of people now that understand what PTSD is. I have a lot of compassion for those that have been through whatever they've been through, because I've been through a lot. Without your dark, you wouldn't know your spark.
Yeah. She's been through a bunch of it. Oof.
So with that, I have the biggest, deepest compassion, but I also know from everything I've just heard you say, what you do best is helping people to remember who that they are by the questions that you ask. Who taught you that? Is that true? And that is a big one. Is that true? And I love that, without losing the compassion, because no, we don't want to just call them a ambulance. Well, if they're with me, they already know that's probable. But well, for real, I give 5 minutes. At the end, I say, how's that working for you? Makes you sit back and look at it. What is, but really it's entering into their heart though. That's the key in any good coach, is the ability to, through compassion and empathy, to be able to enter into their heart. When somebody's in their victim, they're up in their head, to move them down into their heart conscious space, where that's the only place we're going to reach them. And you're right, it could take a long time, but to help somebody remember who they are is to me, it's one of the most brilliant jobs we have here as a human being. So how do you practice compassion and empathy?
Yeah. It's funny, as you were talking about that, Debbie, I was thinking, another, one of the other ways is leading them away from it. There's this other thing is sort of, partial, this thinking and coaching, whereas, you can't change, it's hard to change your thoughts. It's hard to change your behaviors, but it's not hard to just pick up new ones, So, so the idea of just sort of, fine, be a victim. Let's acknowledge it. You're a victim. Let's just leave it right there. I understand the world's out to get you. We're going to pause on that, and let's just talk about something else. Let's talk about where you want to go with your career, or let's talk about where you want to go with your love life, or with this business, or whatever. And let's just look a different direction. Don't worry, your victim's still going to be there. We don't need to solve that today, but let's all go to McDonald's and have some fries, or whatever. That's a terrible analogy, right? Because we were talking about before.
Especially after diabetes, that probably doesn't work too well.
You see my point, though. It's just sometimes leaving it there and just letting it. Oh yeah, and then eventually it can become, oh yeah, well, I forgot about this victimizing thing, right? eventually in some cases. And then there's other times that it really does belong, with a straight up therapist too. But there is, but the empathy is such a huge word. And I mean, and self-empathy too. I mean, the ability to forgive yourself, the ability to accept yourself for who you are, the ability to understand that, like there is no failure. There's just like success and, and lessons learned. I mean, my therapist, and everyone goes, well, I think everyone should go to one. Same with coaching. Everyone should have a coach. Coaches should have therapists. Everyone should have therapists. Fine. My therapist, oh shoot, the thought sort of just jumped out of my mind as I was doing the therapy thing.
Don't you just love when that happens? I mean,
yeah. Oh, well, so much going on. But I do remember now, he was saying, we're talking about identity, right? And when, this ice factory was in tremendous peril, and, was having a bit of a panic attack about it. And I had not been working with my therapist, right, for about, I don't know, maybe a year. And then got back to him and he said, there's a lot of issues in this. There's identity issues tied up in this. There's identity issues tied up in this. I'm talking about a failing, an ice factory that I'm having trouble keeping afloat. I mean, what's the identity issue? Well, the identity issue is, of course, it's tied up with who you think you are and what you think, and you're scared to fail because of what that would do to what you think of yourself and so on and so forth. Okay. So then 9 months later, or I don't know, 2 years later, I guess, year and a half later, we're talking about other things. And we get back to that same idea of self-compassion and the importance of self-compassion and how self-compassion can lead to fearlessness. Because if you are not scared to fail, because you know that even if you do fail, you're still going to love yourself and your significant other is still going to love you and your children are still going to love you, even if you fail, then that releases the pressure for you to actually behave in a fearless way because you are prepared to fail. Not prepared to fail. You are not scared of failure because the love is still going to be there. So therefore, you can operate from a place of fearlessness. And that's a different mindset, a completely different mindset. So
I want to throw something else out here too. This is it's been going around in my head for the last 10 minutes as we've been talking about this, because you made a few interesting points and I think they are accurate. I'm going to kind of give you the exception on them, and the exception is me. And the reason I'm the exception is you mentioned, for instance, you don't really want to bring it home and dump it on your spouse or anything like that. And you really need to have a coach to work with, or you need to have a therapist. I'm kind of lucky. I'm married to a former psychotherapist. And the business that I run is her business. So it's all kind of tied together. So I have a completely exceptional case that doesn't apply in most situations. But it does give me an interesting perspective. And one of the pieces of perspective that comes out of it is something that I've learned just because of my relationship with my wife. And that is, yes, you don't want to dump on a spouse, but you can build your relationship in part by asking for your spouse to help. And I'll tell you what that looks like in my experience. Now, obviously, my wife had the psychotherapeutic background, so that made a big difference. But even without that, we went through, I was telling you before about how we went through hell in 2012. Actually, it was 2008. Both of our businesses failed at the same time. Her business was a gardening business. Nobody wants to pay for gardening in the middle of a financial crisis. My business was providing web services to small nonprofit organizations who don't get any money donated to them during a financial crisis. So both of our businesses went poof in a puff of smoke. And 4 years later, we're deep in debt and we're struggling to survive. But what got us through that really miserable period was each other. Because even though we didn't have any answers, even though we couldn't figure out what the frig we were going to do with all this stuff, we were just there for each other. And you don't have to be married to a therapist for that to happen. You basically have to be there for each other as a couple. So you don't want to dump on the other person, but you can ask your spouse for help.
Yeah, you totally can. And I take that point, and I think that's a great point of clarification. And thanks for putting it that way. You're definitely a lucky. It sounds like you've got a wonderful marriage, and I'd like to applaud you for that, because that's certainly a great thing. And it's the idea of the bringing it home and dumping it. It's not the thing and a lot of the work I do is with businesses that are really having a hard time. Either they're having a hard time keeping their doors open, or they're having a hard time dealing with all the demand. Dealing with growth, dealing with fast, rapid growth is almost as traumatic as dealing with, having no growth or sort of going down the tubes, right? Because they're both insanely nerve-wracking. But I think you should. I think, yeah, no, coming home and discussing what's going on in your life with your significant other, yeah, that's really important. And I didn't not do that, but there were but there are definitely things that I was comfortable. It's there's things that I wasn't bringing home. I wasn't opening up about my fear. I wasn't opening up about this incredible vulnerability. I certainly was not opening up to anybody about what a financially perilous position I had put myself in. It's a lot of P's for a podcast. A lot of,
I love-
If you're going to do a piece, you might as well do it in a podcast.
I love you just reminding me of the 3 P's: people, process, product. Marcus Leonomus.
Oh, there you go.
I'm a Marcus Leonomus fan. We're going to get into the P's here, but I love that you brought up the word vulnerability. Vulnerability. Yeah. So why do you think you didn't tell people about the perils that you were facing?
Boy, that really gets to it.
Yeah, great question. I touched a little bit on it. There's identity stuff in there. Okay, I can't let anyone know that, I can't let the world know that this is problematic. So there's that. There's also, I didn't want to give it a lot of energy. I didn't want to put it out there and sort of have that become the narrative that, Eric's having a hard time with the business,
Good one.
So I guess those are the reasons I didn't tell anyone. I think, but for some of the people that I work with, and certainly some of the people that I want to work with who are out there right now suffering in silence, trying to figure out what the heck to do with their businesses and how to keep this whole circus going. The people that I really want to work with are ones who are scared to come home and, sort of tell the metaphorical wife and child that they might lose the business, because they're now going to think, we're going to lose the house, we're going to lose the car, we're going to lose everything. And that, I think, to the person who can't take that home, that's the person that I truly want to work with, because that baggage, walking around with that fear in your head,
that's walking around with terror is what that is. And I know
I want to confirm what you're saying, because back in 2000, around 2007 and 8, we all know that was a fun year.
Oh, it was a great year. Yeah.
Well, I had an advertising publication, and I loved it. All the local businesses were my clients, and it was successful, and they made ROI, and I made ROI, and I literally had myself up in this. I'm visible around the community. Everyone knows who I am. This is my gig. I know all the restaurants. I know all the owners of every freaking business.
For sure.
I've got my trade at 80, or my trade at 20, and I've got my cash is king at 80, and sometimes, whatever. And I'm flying. And then the strings start popping. And I remember, oh my God, I can't go tell anybody about this. I'm losing my ass here. Oh my God, they're losing their ass here. Oh geez. And as their doors were closing, the doors were closing. I literally plummeted, because I had my entire identity strapped up in my successes rather than who I am as a person. It was all external. So I really love how you touched on that, because I've been through that, and I was in that devastation, and I would reach out to no one, because God bless it, I wasn't letting my ego get bent, because my ego was too important, and how people saw me was everything.
And let's be honest, at that point, it already was bent. You didn't want to bend it more.
Dude, it was just insane. Instead, I just lose my shit. And that's the truth of it. For a year and a half after that happened, it took a while for me to pull myself out of that. That experience is what I know what you're talking about with these business owners that come in. And I think that is why I love Marcus Leonomus going out there and saving these small businesses. It's just, I love this. And I love small business owners. We were one. I grew up, my parents had a tire chain. That was I get that. But I also understand the importance of being okay if it does go to all hell in a handbag, because it's just that. That is replaceable. You're not. I'm not.
Yeah. 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 That's right. Yeah. And, you know, I don't want to, I don't want to speak for anyone else, but I mean, you can things that you can, it sounds so cliche, but, to lose money on a business, okay, you said it, Debbie. You're still yourself. You're still there. There can be the next business, right? And we talk about this. We talk about, a lot of people who have made it in business have only gotten there because they've failed numerous times before.
A
Right.
zillion
And
times. That's right.
and when yeah, and when they failed, see, that's the thing that nobody ever says. Like, they say, yes, it's, when those first businesses are failing, because you don't know that you're about to, your next business is going to be the one that gets you to the finish line. Each one of those failures is individually terrifying. My first business failure was in 2001. It was, I was running I had started and was running a design agency. We did interactive work for ad agencies in New York, right? Internet was getting started. All their clients wanted interactive stuff, and they didn't know how to do it yet because they hadn't built these teams inside. So we did it for them, and everything was great in 1999, 2000, and then 2001 in March we had the dot-com bubble burst, and so there goes a huge chunk of business. And so for the rest of that year, here we are again, walking around with terror in your mind, this dread of losing the business. And then, this is in New York, right? So then, in the end of 2001 in New York, we have the Twin Towers, right? And that just really shut everything down. But I will tell you, interestingly enough, this is a crazy story. So I managed to get out of that by selling the business, right? And it was a good business, and we had great buyers, and it was great. And I was happy to. The best part about selling the business was that I was no longer on the hook for the finances, right? I stayed on as a creative director, but now we had resources. Now we didn't have to worry about the money. All we had to worry about was the work, and things got instantly better, right? Which is great. And the deal worked out for everybody. But I will tell you, my goodness, we were supposed to close on that deal, sell the company. We started to try to sell the company in June of 2001. We're mated with a company out of Minneapolis who was going to buy us. And the 2-day closing session for selling the company was September 10th and September 11th,
Oh my goodness.
2001.
Oh my goodness.
Or not. So on day 2, I still get shivers even just saying that. So on day 2 of selling this company, and keep in mind, this is something where I've been walking around with this financial strain on my, for the entire year, right? And now we are at the finish line. Day 2 to get this thing off my back. My God, the World Trade Center happened that day. And not only that, but there were like 6 executives in from Minneapolis and Manhattan trying to get this deal done. I mean, they're not as familiar with the city as I am. They're out of towners from Minneapolis. And to be there on 9/11 in a city you don't know, and remember, planes didn't fly for the next 5 days. They were stuck there. Oh my goodness, what a mess.
I'm talking about terror. That's beyond the other kind of terror. That's just personal terror. That's just dealing with your own stuff terror.
The destruction of things. It's going to happen. Unfortunately, there are some times when we look at it and it's grave experiences that happen. But what I also know, and this is what I'm going to be interested to hear, is the beauty that comes out of the destruction, the beauty that then develops, because once you're at ground zero, and we've been at ground zero how many times, you come back up. So what did that look like for you at ground zero, literally, as you then sold? Obviously, it still went through.
September 16th, yeah.
What happened for you at ground zero for you to rebuild? What was the beauty of your experience?
Oh my gosh, that's such a crazy question. Well, I mean, this is something that, so first off, 9/11 was something that I know affected all of us, and certainly, certainly all New Yorkers. And it was a crazy thing. And, even to this day, I, they used to say, we will never forget. And, It's true. I certainly won't. But I will say, Debbie, in answer to your question, and it's a fascinating question. On that day, considering everything we were just talking about, there was something in me that felt as if this was the reset. This was
Mm,
where we were going to build it
yeah.
back from. You know,
Mm.
and I had not even considered that until, and I had to take myself back. I was on my friend Dylan's roof on the Upper West Side, West 86th Street. We were up there on the roof just watching it, you know, as the sun set with this, and that's what was, yeah, right? Because it was kind of in line
Yeah.
with this idea of we're all in a different world now. Remember, there was that
Mhm.
sense after
Oh
9/11 where
yeah.
it's like, okay, things are different now.
Yep.
And so, yeah, that was kind of a real reset for me. And then to your point, yeah, absolutely. Now from here we grow. Hmm.
That was seriously beautiful. Like I was right there with you in that moment, and that's a very tender moment in many respects. Yours is even more so with the visual. We're over here in California watching the news, still experiencing that for others, but to be there also with what was happening in your own life to reset. But I love how that you pulled that back through. Say that last part one more time about growth.
Hmm. Yeah.
You said that something, you said growth, and as a matter of fact, it's on your website here. I just saw it too.
Yeah. These, I guess the growth, these are all, these are the opportunities, right? Where growth is
Yeah.
possible. And this is sort of, you know, and I think we've all sort of been through this, right? Like if we actually look back at our lives, and this goes back to the power of, the vision that you get from wisdom, right? But if we look back, there we have failed more than well, now here's the thing. We have recovered from failure more than we think, right?
Mhm.
I know there's this tendency to, think that things are worse than they are, so on and so forth. But if you look back, I think a lot of us will be surprised how many times they have successfully recovered from something that might seem so hard to come back from even to begin with, whether it's everyone has their own. I don't need to go into a list of what bad things happen, but the comeback stories are everywhere, and it's a good thing because they need to be there. And and the coaching thing, to the extent that we can help, facilitate those and push people into those narratives, then all the better.
And to tie into what you were, I think, drawing attention to, Debbie, I don't remember exactly how you said it, Eric, but the gist of it was now that this whole event has happened in the middle of this event that I was living, we have a new start. This is the new starting point. And
Yeah.
the reason I think that's a very critical point, and I love the fact that you're bringing that out, Debbie, is that I think all people encounter that thought, not everybody else embraces it. And I think the lack of embracing it is why it is we end up getting stuck in the failure. I say that from my own personal experience because I think of the times where I just kind of ran into brick walls and didn't know what to do. And I couldn't bring myself to see the starting point anymore. All I could see was the burning rubble.
Yeah.
But you were able to see the starting point. That's the difference right there. That's why it is that some people see the failure as just as the next step toward the success, whereas other people see the failure as the end game.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But there's something that getting through that end game too, and again, it kind of goes back to the coaching or being in that perilous situation. You do have to go through it to
Yeah.
get to the other side. Like unfortunately, I learned this unfortunately, the only way through, the pain is through the pain. Like you've got to, if something is truly going down, you need to go down. But the trick is, going down and then coming through it, being able to turn it around, Walt. And as Debbie pointed out, figure out where we're going to start growing again from, right? The pendulum swings. So we're going in a different direction. Okay. Well, if we embrace that, all the better. If we can manage it, if we can, get in front of it as something is going through this troubled phase and turn it around, that's great. If we can't, then that's great too. Hey, this is interesting. With some of my clients, with a percentage of them, maybe as many as a quarter of them, it's clear to everyone when we get into it that we're not here to save this business. We're here to get you out of this business, and we're here to get you into something else. So it's not just always about like, hey, work with Eric and hey, let's just fix your profits and whatever. No, if it's not working, and it may be profitable and it still may not be working for you. It may not be working for you emotionally. It may not be working, it may be affecting your relationships. If we got to get out of this thing, we got to get out of this thing. And there's a lot of ways to do that. And, let's get you out of this. It's like, let's get you out of this business and into something that fits who you want to be, where you want to be, how you want to live your life. That's also a big part of what I do.
There's also a big piece here. And I imagine this is kind of what you were alluding to a moment ago. The piece where you're in the midst of the whole thing falling apart. And the trick, if you can get yourself into this space, and a coach is certainly a great way to get there because a coach can help you get there, is to let the thing fall apart without attaching to it. Because if you can do, which by the way, it's a very bewildering experience. The first time I really, really experienced that was 2012. And there was actually 2012 to 2014. There was like a buildup, and then January 2014, the whole thing was just insane. But that's another day. I'll tell that story again. But what it felt like, what the experience was like, was, oh my God, things are colliding. Random things are crashing. My life is just like, these stupid things happen. This terrible thing happened, followed by this wonderful thing, and then this insane thing, and then this other thing that just, holy cow, how did that happen? And like all this crazy stuff happening. Yeah. And when you're done, you sit back and you say, what just happened?
Yeah.
My mind can't grasp that.
And maybe it doesn't have to. I mean, that's the other part of it, right? Maybe it doesn't have to grasp it all. We don't always have to understand everything. We just have to be good about working through it, right? So as the worlds are colliding around you, Walt, being unattached to trying to make all those worlds, spin in the way that you think they should. No, let them spin. Just learn how to get through this, how to get whatever this is. We learn to get through it. I mean, at some point, I think a lot of us get to the point where we realize we can't control the world, right? Like we can't, as much as we want to. There's a lot of things that are beyond our control. So then it really does become about how do we deal with it? And you brought up attachment, and that's such a huge part of it too. I mean, not being emotionally attached to outcomes, to results. Go for it. Believe in it. Do what you're going to do, but do not make but do so with non-attachment. Let it be its own thing.
And lack of attachment is actually how I also looked at how to deal with the collapse, because as the thing collapses, that's where I would personally. This is me, and I'm not necessarily reacting the way everybody else would react, but for me, I would want to react to that like I got to save this as the thing is falling on my head. Mm-hmm. Whereas when I actually just stepped back and said, I'm powerless here. I have no idea what to do. I have no resources left. I can't do anything. All I can do, because there's no other option at this point, is to trust. And just getting into that space alone enabled my wife and I to get through a horrendous period just because of that.
And I love that. I love non-attachment. Yeah, thank you all. Yeah. Practice the art of non-interference and don't be attached to the outcome. Dr. Wayne Dyer taught about that a lot. Oh my God, I loved it. In the movie, I forget now, which is it? It's The Shift. The Shift. In the movie The Shift. It's on YouTube. If anybody's interested, go watch it. You said that, but it's it. When we're attached to what the thing needs to look like, what we're doing is actually shorting ourselves. We're shorting ourselves from the magic and the glory that it could be. Oprah Winfrey used to talk about this all the time. If I had known or had insight that this is what was going to happen every time shit hit the fan, and we aren't given all of everything that's possible, because it's endless, limitless possibility. To be unattached is to remain in that energy and appreciate where the hell we're at when we're here. Because there's no win, W-I-N, and win, W-H-E-N. Just saying.
Yeah. Yeah, just saying. Well, I love that you bring up Oprah though, because that is a tremendous example. There is
Isn't she?
no way that young Oprah could have said, okay, by the time I'm 60, here's what I'm going to have. There's no way. But if you can believe and you can just go one step after the other, and then not predetermine the outcome, but just surf through it. Let the opportunities present themselves, make the most of the opportunities as they do. I used to say all the time, the writing's on the wall. Follow the writing on the wall, the urges, the instinct, see where it goes. And look where it went for Oprah. I mean, it is an amazing tale, right? And if you look around, there's a lot of stories like that, but Oprah is one that always resonates with me because she is literally everywhere. And you could not craft that. You can only let that happen. You can believe in it and facilitate it, but you could never set up a media organization like that from scratch.
Seriously, it's crazy. And I love that. That's how my ranch happened. And it's how the healing happens. And it's how my life happens today. There is literally like no attachments. I watch life. Life is magical and an adventure. And sometimes it's irritating as all hell.
Oh, yes.
Okay? Because I am human. Don't let me think I'm coming off with my unicorn foo fairies and that I don't experience being pissed off ever or irritated.
Well, the unicorn fairies can be irritating too. Let's be perfectly honest.
Well, let's just be right. Yeah. So, but really what it comes down to is exactly what Eric has said, and that is showing a different perspective to somebody that they may not be seeing, and which is why that you've been here today. And some of the perspectives that you've brought forward are beautiful because they've allowed some, I believe, unfolding of possibility in one's life. And I would say that that is what you help people do, to unfold their limitless possibilities. And for that, I thank you.
Yeah.
Geez, I thank you for that, Debbie. I think that's an awesome way of putting it. And I appreciate you acknowledging that. And I appreciate you, and Walt, you too. I mean, this has been a great experience for me, and I've really enjoyed being on with you guys here today. So I will say, Debbie, though, the idea of, manifesting up a 20-acre ranch in today's market conditions sounds like just fantastic. And what a great thing to be open to and to have happen. Again, I don't know if a ranch has been something you've wanted all along, or if it just sort of presented itself, but either way, it's amazing. And I can only imagine, what great and interesting adventures that ranch is going to bring into your life.
Huge, big. Yeah. Well, our first event's going to be in June. All of my life experiences have given me a piece of the puzzle as how to run this business and how to run this house and how to run this ranch. Every single solitary thing from everything I've ever done in my entire life.
It all adds up. It all adds up.
And I have knowledge in things that are just remarkable. And I take classes for fun. So I'm always learning too. I love that you said that. I just love to do that. I expand my brain and my knowledge. So thank you for recognizing and acknowledging where I'm at with this, because I super appreciate you as well. You guys, we're at the top of the hour.
Yeah, we are. Actually, there's a couple. We can't end yet. First of all, there's two pieces of information we got to get out here. First one, Eric, you can't leave without telling people how to reach you. I mean, come on, you got to tell people where to find you.
Yeah. Oh, gladly. I mean, I'm super open and accessible. You can find me online, right? I'm at ericgoeres.com. Eric, GOERES.com. Anything you need from me is there. You can contact me from there, or whatever you need can go through that. And I will just say, anyone who's out there that, needs to talk about something like this, hit me up. There's a little button right there that says grab an hour with Eric, or book an appointment, or whatever it says. But go through and let's talk. And, even if we only talk once, like I said, I'm talking free, by the way. So come book a free hour with me anytime you want. Even if we never talk to each other again, I promise you'll get something out of the hour, not because I can deliver it, but because through our work, you'll discover something about yourself, which is, well worth it. So thank you for that, Walt.
That's
that plug.
powerful. Absolutely. And we will include a link in the show notes too. So if you don't remember or you aren't sure how to spell Goeres, just go right there in the notes, click, you'll be done. No big deal right there. The other thing the last bit of business I want to put out here is another thank you. And we're doing a lot of good thank yous here, and I appreciate every one of them. But I also want to thank you, Eric, on behalf of all of the unseen people you've never met, that you never will meet, who have been affected and helped by all the things that you've been doing, particularly in the last 3 years, but also throughout your life. Because we don't get that appreciation much. We don't get those thank yous. We don't hear that at all. But each one of us who does work like this, and you've done a ton of it, deserve thanks for that. So thank you on behalf of the people you helped that you'll never meet, that you've never seen, that have just received benefit from you. Thank you for the work that you do.
That's sweet. Thank you, Walt. Honestly, that gives me shivers, but thank you for that. That is a really nice thing to say. Thank you.
And thank you to our podcast listeners. Hey, we got one more. Whoa, stop. Wait.
I think we're doing a high five.
High five. Hey, I got to do a plug tomorrow because, guys, tomorrow morning on Unify Women Rising has Gina Tabrizi. Gina Tabrizi is coming on to talk about her book, Healing is a Love Story. She is a fantastic psychologist and a marriage and family therapist who has been in the addiction arena for many, 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 many years. And I love Gina. I was just at her book signing not long ago. So tomorrow, Unify, 9 a.m. Pacific. Be there.
That's going to be a good one. My wife is a former marriage and family therapist.
This is good. It's going to rock tomorrow.
You're going to get some great information out of that. That's going to be amazing.
I'm all about it.
So very cool. All right. So thank you guys so much. And thank you especially to our podcast listeners everywhere. We will see you all next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.